Welcome to the show, folks. This is Wrestling Changed My Life. Here we go.
Coach John was very welcoming. And then when we got there, when I got to Oklahoma State, I saw his competitiveness come through.
We can endure anything and adapt and pivot and change. Wrestling gave us that ability.
I would say nothing in life has impacted me more than the things wrestling has taught me in terms of self-reflection, resilience.
Toughness. Some guys have it, some guys don't.
Adversity, 100%. How to pick myself up and be a man after I failed.
And everything that has shaped my life and where I'm at today would not be there without the values and basically the lessons I've learned through the sport of wrestling.
For me, wrestling saved my life because it allowed me to focus and channel my energy.
We're fortunate if you wrestled, because if you wrestled, natural talent helps, but it's 5% of the ingredient. It pales in comparison to heart and technique and effort.
It humbled me, taught me humility. Nothing can humble you more than wrestling. I think it's the learning to adapt, right? You learn how to adapt, you learn how to solve problems.
You know, if I look back at my time I spent wrestling, if it gave me one thing more than anything else, it's mental toughness.
Ladies and gents, it's episode 132, if you can believe it. Our guest today is Mark Munoz. He was an NCAA champ for Oklahoma State in the late 90s, coached at Oklahoma State for a while, and then went on to be a UFC fighter and one of the great UFC coaches in the game. At one point, he was ranked as high as third in the world in the UFC. Now he's retired and has dedicated his time to coaching. Awesome conversation. Hope you enjoy it. Fan of the week goes to City Wrestling Guy. That's at City Wrestle on Twitter, representing Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Thank you for tuning in, my friend. Folks, this episode is brought to you by the Beat the Street Chicago Virtual Gala. It takes place on Saturday, June 6th from 8 to 9 p.m. Our in-person gala got canceled, which is a huge fundraiser for us, and so we're doing everything we can to raise money for Beat the Street Chicago through this virtual gala. Please, please, please register and attend this thing. It's free to attend, and to do so, go to WrestlingChangeMyLife.com and click on the Beat the Streets tile on the homepage. You can't miss it. And that's it, folks. Let's give it up for Mark Munoz. So, Mark Munoz, we are here with you, my friend, calling in from California. Crazy times right now, and I'm sure we'll get to that, but, man, you have had an incredible career of wrestling, both in the college level and then on the junior freestyle circuit, and then the UFC, and then to training people. But let's go back with the origin story, man. I've heard through the grapevine that you got involved with wrestling because someone stole your Jordans. I don't know if that's true or fact, but let's take it back that far, man. What's that story, and how did it all weave into wrestling?
Yeah, so in the eighth grade, I asked Santa for some J's. and on Christmas Day, I opened up some Jordans. I was like, I couldn't believe it, and so I wore them, and I just was like, wow, I can't believe I got some J's. So
and let me interrupt you real quick. Did you grow up in a wealthy family, a poor family? What part of town were you in? Was it a big deal to get the J's?
Yeah, it was a really big deal, and so, we're a middle-class family, hardworking middle-class family. My parents were immigrants coming from the Philippines. My parents both worked, and so my sister and I were latchkey kids. And so, they provided for us. They fought for us. They worked pretty much to give us the life that they never had, basically. So we're basically a middle class family in Vallejo, California, in the San Francisco Bay Area, by like Richmond and just the Bay Area, Richmond, Oakland, San Francisco. It's just like the gateway of the Bay Area. Vallejo is. So yes, that's where I grew up, and my parents actually moved from, my dad was in the Navy, met my mom in San Francisco, and then they decided to move to Vallejo with my mom's family also moved to Vallejo. So we had family there, so we decided to relocate our family to Vallejo. So I actually was born in Japan, on a naval base, U.S. naval base. My dad served in the U.S. Navy, and then when I was 2 years old, they decided to move to Vallejo. So that's where I'm from, is Vallejo, California.
And so that's the background. So you get the Jordans Christmas morning. What happens next?
Yeah. So 13 years old, I get a pair of J's, and I wore them. And the first day back to school, walking down a hallway, and someone to the right of me says, "Hey, yo, break yourself off in them J's." And I'm like, whoa. So I was getting verbally bullied for my shoes, so and that didn't make me feel good. And so, verbal bullying is defined as anything that comes out of your mouth that's a threat and an insult that hurts somebody's feelings, right? So, so I just walked away from that and, just didn't pay any mind to it. And then after school, we had open gym, and I like to play basketball. And so I stayed and I played hoop for about 2 hours. And, of course, I took off my J's because I didn't want them to get scuffed or dirty. So I wanted to keep them nice and fresh, so I put them underneath the bleachers in my backpack. And, and then when I walked home, I put them back on. Well, as I walked back home, that's when I got physically bullied for my J's. So as I was walking, I got held down and beat up by 5 guys that that were wanting my shoes. So as I was walking, I heard people running behind me, and as I looked back, they're already probably about 10 feet away from me at full speed. And so I took 2 steps, and boom, they shoelace tackled me and held me down, and each person on each limb of my body. And then as I tried to push my way up, I got kicked in the face. And so when I woke up, I was bloodied, bruised, battered, didn't have shoes on my feet, and I walked home barefoot and ashamed. So that's what happened to me. And so I faked being sick for about 3 days. Just to preface that, there's over 160,000 students every day that get bullied in the United States of America, and that's a astronomical number. So I actually was one of those 160,000 kids. I never thought, I never thought in a million years I'd ever get bullied, and I would watch people get bullied in the quad at school, or like I've seen some people get physically bullied for just whatever, and I was like, that's never going to happen to me. And then when it happened to me, it just totally just rocked my world. So I was just like, oh my gosh, man, this turned my world upside down. So
did you know the guys?
When that happened, no, I didn't at the time. I didn't know the guys at the time. They're much older than me.
That is terrifying that you would just get mugged and jumped like that. I mean, so you're physically hurting, but that heals quickly. I mean, did you tell your parents what happened when you walked home, or did you try to hide it?
No. So when I got home, my parents were working, and so when I got home, I was quickly trying to clean up my face, and and then when my parents got home, my dad just was like, "Mark, what happened?" And I was ashamed, and I didn't want him to worry. And I go, Dad, I was playing in the backyard with my friends and fell down and fell on my face and scraped the side of my face, And so I was ashamed to tell him, And so and then I don't want him to worry either, And so I didn't want it to turn into this big fiasco, So I decided to keep it to myself, And so I decided to be silent about it, not tell anybody, and just hide it within my soul and my heart, and not let anybody know, And so, I was actually participating in a problem, because silence is participation, right? And so I allowed it to kind of like fester within my heart and mind, and that wasn't a good thing, and so I faked it, and I didn't want to tell my parents about it, and I think my dad thought it was kind of weird, but he's like, Mark, are you stupid? Like, don't do that, like,
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, all right, Dad, and so, I don't think he thought of anything at that point, but, later on, as I got older, I actually told him about it. So, but yeah, so when I got home, I cleaned my face and I faked being sick for 3 days. Finally, my dad said, "You're not sick, go back to school." And so when I went back to school, it was crazy because, I was afraid. I didn't want to go, and so, I was walking around with my head down, not wanting to make eye contact to anybody. And, I would go to a classroom during lunch and stay there and do my homework and not socialize with people because I didn't want anybody to know what happened to me, And so I tried to keep to myself. Finally, one day, a friend of mine comes up to me and says, "Hey, yo, Munoz, man, where your J's at, dude?" I'm like, I didn't feel like wearing them today, man. And so he just kept asking about them, and then finally he was just like, "Man, dude, if I had some J's, man, I'd be like sporting them every day. I'd be telling everybody, hey, man, yo, check me out. My J's are so dope, And so he was just like saying all that stuff to me. Finally, I just erupted. I was having these like frustrating and angry feelings within my chest, and finally it got so overwhelming that I exploded like a volcano. I was just like, "Hey, I didn't feel like wearing my J's today, man. Chill out," right? And I clenched my fist and I looked at him, and he was a lot shorter than me. He was a Filipino guy. He was a lot shorter than me. He goes, puts his hands up in the air. He goes, "Hey, man, calm down, dude. Just chill out. All I want to know where your J's were at, dude. Chill." And I go, "Man, man, chill, bro." Like, and I told him the story. And then his face dropped, and he was like, "Dude, I'm so sorry, I didn't know." And then he turns away and says, "Hey, man, you need to learn how to wrestle." I'm like, "Wrestle? No, man. You guys wear tight leotards and touch each other in funny places, man. I'm cool, man. I'm gonna keep playing football and basketball. That's what I do, right?" And he goes, "What? Tight leotard? You think that's funny?" I go, "No, man. That's just what you do, bro." And then he goes, "I bet you I take you down in 10 seconds. I said, "Yeah, right. Dude, you're barely 100 pounds soaking wet. I'm 160 pounds, right? There's no way you can take me down, right?" And so I break down in my stance like I knew how to get in a wrestling stance, right? And he shoots in, picks me up in a double leg, and slams me on my back, and I've been wearing a singlet ever since.
Let's go, baby. Let's go.
So,
Dude,
so
what was
like,
your stance like, man? Did you have like the spirit fingers going and all that shit?
Yeah, that's what I do when I make my presentation. I do have the spirit fingers going, because I'm like, "Yeah, what's up, homie?" And I'm like putting my hand in his face. I'm like, "Yeah, what's up, homie? What you got?" And dude, he just shot in, picked me up, and slammed me on my back, and I was just like coughing because it took the air out of me, So I was just like, whoa. If wrestling gives me superpowers like that, I want it, right? And so I decided to wrestle ever since then, man. And my first day wrestling practice, man, I didn't like it, because I was getting double legged and like cross face, because before that we were learning the double leg, obviously, we were learning the inside tie.
Mm-hmm.
Collar tie, snap the head to a double leg, take them down, take the back, and then run a half, right? That was my first day of practice. And then the coach goes, "All right, guys, time to go live." And I'm like, "What? I am alive. What does that mean?" So I didn't know what that meant. So I was like, "Wait, what? What does that mean?" So he goes, "No, we're going to go 100% in the position that he showed." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I got it." So I was just getting double legged, wrecked, and cross faced and half to my back, and I got bloody nose, and I bit my lip, and my lip started bleeding. I was like, I don't know if I want to wrestle anymore. And so I went back home. I told my dad. Well, my dad goes, "Nope, you're gonna finish what you start, and you're not quitting." I'm like, "Dad, you don't understand." He goes, "Nope, no exception, not quitting." So I was like, "Oh man!" So I stuck it out, and I'm thankful that my dad did that because he had much wisdom and knowledge. And so when I stuck it out, by the end of my senior year, I was a 2-time state champion, a high school national champ. And I take second at the Junior Worlds, like you said. And I get a full ride scholarship to Oklahoma State University. So
how did you? Sorry, go ahead.
I was like, I'm thankful that my dad did that.
Oh, I
so
mean,
that was just fast forwarding to the end of my high school career.
How did you? And I love that your dad. I love that old school discipline where it's like, hey, I'm not going to force you to do something, but if you start it, you got to finish it. So I love that.
Yep.
But so you start in 8th grade. How did you advance so quickly? And I got to say, it seems like a California theme. I know so many Californians that didn't even start until high school and are really good. But after you started, were you going 12 months a year? Were you working out 2 times a day? Like, what do you attribute your ability to advance so quickly?
Yeah. So thank goodness I had, good coaches, so when I started in the 8th grade, I wasn't really supposed to be in the wrestling room because 9th grade was the only time that you can actually wrestle with the high school team. So I had 9th graders as friends. And so we had to travel from this junior high, which is called Solano Junior High, and we had to travel to Vallejo Senior High School. And so and so I was friends with them, and so they were already training, and I was just getting beat up every day, right? And so that's one thing. That's one aspect of me getting better is my friends already had wrestling experience, and I was just getting beat up every day, and then they were just showing me different things. And one thing that I grew up in an area where you had to know how to fight, and so you had that fighting mentality already. Like if somebody hits you, you're going to try to get them back like 3 or 4 or 5 times, that's the mentality I had. So like when somebody took me down, I was like, man, so if somebody scored on me, I wanted to get it back like 2 or 3 times more than what they did to me. You know what I'm saying? So I had that mentality already because I grew up in that environment, right? It's like that saying is you're a product of your environment. So that's what I grew up around, and so I was very competitive, very aggressive, and that's how I was, and that's how I was kind of programmed, and so in the 8th grade, when I got beat up that first day, I was like, man, I don't want to do this, and I stuck with it, and then my buddies kept asking, Munoz, you gonna come? You gonna come? And come? And I'm like, yeah, I'll be there, So we would have to catch a ride and drive over there and go to practice. And so by the middle of my 8th grade year, as I went every day and started to get better, I actually found out that the seniors were actually they made masters and they made it to state and stuff. And so I was like, man, I want to train with those guys, and so I want to feel how they feel, what the difference is, and so then that was a whole nother level, and I got beat up by them. But by the end of the year, I was going with them every day, and so I just got better, just getting my butt kicked every day and not accepting it, and just gritting and bearing it and finding out what I'm doing wrong. And thank goodness the coach actually, he had a culture and an environment where if you got scored on something, you got to ask questions so you don't get scored on it anymore, or if you didn't score on something, like you got to find out what you did wrong to be able to, score in that position again, because if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, you're crazy and insane, right? So he fostered that that mentality within me, and so I was just like, okay, and so I was just asking questions, and I'm in this position. So that's how I got so good so fast. And then I did freestyle too. So in the 8th grade, I did schoolboy state, and I took third at schoolboy state. In Greco, all I had was a head and arm, and I was just throwing the head and arm, just reckless abandon, just throwing the head and arm and getting it. So someone would get an underhook, because in Greco, people just want to get an underhook all the time. So I was just like, sweet. So I would just like throw their head off their shoulders as I like turned, and I got in head and arm, and I made a Greco world team, just with a head and arm. So, anyways, that's how I got good so fast, because I had that mentality, one. And two, I wrestled freestyle and Greco at the end, and I had a great coach. His name was Andy Foley. He, reffed and had a club that had most of everybody, like every high school actually went to this club called Vallejo Police Activities League, and we kind of convened. If you're from a different high school, it's all good. We just wrestled with each other the whole time, and so I was able to see like all the best wrestlers within Vallejo come together, and I was just learning. I just learned. And then my freshman year, I made varsity, right? So I was varsity my whole 4 years, and then got my butt kicked a little bit, but I mean, I did pretty good my freshman year. And then my sophomore year, that's when it all clicked for me. That's when I made that Greco world team, and I wrestled in Russia.
What? As a sophomore?
As a sophomore, yeah, I made cadet worlds.
Wow, what a turnaround! I mean, you think about 5 minutes after you got jumped and your shoes stolen. That had to be the lowest moment, definitely of your life at that time, maybe of your life ever. I mean, how embarrassed your parents spent all that money on the shoes and you don't have it. And it's like, that's just the lowest point for a man to be in. But you got to imagine that's what propelled you to have this career in wrestling, because maybe you wouldn't have challenged your buddy to that takedown contest, if that wouldn't have happened. So I just
for sure.
Crazy how these situations where at the time you think it's the worst thing possible. There's no way anything will come good of this, but it just life has a way of working itself out like that.
It does, and for me, it just at that time, like you said, I was so down on myself. But thank goodness I had great friends that actually invited me out to do things, and I accepted it. And so I always say that your life experiences shape and mold you into who you are and who you become, but your life choices do it even more so, right? Mm. So I chose to get into wrestling and chose to stick with it, and so now wrestling changed my life forever. Because that time where in the wake of me getting bullied and jumped from my shoes, I just wanted to be a hermit, and not deal with it and like sweep it underneath the rug. But thank goodness my friends and my community, and they rallied around me and just said, hey, you need to get out of this funk, and so yeah. But I didn't tell anybody what happened to me, but they were just super encouraging and welcoming me out to things, and so that's how I got out of it, really, and when I give my anti-bullying campaign speeches, I talk about how if you're silent, you're actually participating in the problem, right? Because you're not letting anybody know what's happening to you, and so there's this pledge that we give at the end of every anti-bullying campaign seminar, and it says, no longer will I be silent if I need help. Silence is participation. I refuse to participate in the problem. If we are all different, we all deserve respect. If you need help, come to me. If I think you need help, I'm getting involved. I got your back. So that's the pledge that we make to each other after my anti-bullying campaign seminars is, we're going to be there for each other, and we're going to help each other out and make each other stronger, So, so for me, during that time, I was just like, man, this is stupid. Why did this happen to me? And I was just wallowing in my sorrow, and I had to make a decision, based upon my friend coming to me, because I didn't want to go to school. I wanted to hide. I didn't want to, I was so ashamed, and so thank goodness my parents forced me to school, and thank goodness my friend came up to me. And if it weren't for those events that happened in my life, I wouldn't be known as the Filipino wrecking machine right now.
Right.
I wouldn't have been a UFC fighter. I wouldn't have graduated at Oklahoma State. I wouldn't have, have gotten my master's at Sac State. I wouldn't have studied, sports psychology. I wouldn't have been a coach. I wouldn't have been any of that. I wouldn't have been who I am today if that didn't happen in my life, right? And so,
I didn't realize you were into sports psychology. Were you into this back when you were wrestling at Okie State, or is this something you've learned well after the fact?
No, so when I was at Oklahoma State, I graduated, coached there for 3 years, and then I got a job offer at UC Davis where Lenny Zaleski was the head coach. And never thought I'd ever coach alongside a Hawkeye, but but he asked me, and that was 20 miles away from my hometown. I was like, man, I get to go back to California. Heck yeah, man. So and get paid for what I love to do. Shoot, for sure. So I go back there, move my family. I had a wife and 3 kids, one on the way, and so head back to California, and I met this guy by the name of Uriah Faber,
Let's go.
Uriah,
let's go.
Yeah, Uriah wrestled for UC Davis, and he just graduated when I got there, and so I was still trying out for an Olympic team in 2000. 2004, and I was like, trying to train everywhere I could, and I brought Uriah along with me to the Olympic Training Center, to like different places, and I actually qualified for the trials, and Uriah was like getting into like MMA and wrestling at the same time, and he was also getting his graduate degree, and so he was like, hey, Munoz, man, you need to start training with me in jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai and MMA. I go, man, nah, dude, I'm coaching, teaching, getting my master's, man. I don't have any time. And he's like, well, can you corner me my first 5 fights? I'm like, yeah, for sure. So actually my first fight, and I was like, cornered him, and I ended up cornering 5 fights after that. And I was like, dude, this is sweet. And so I got into it. He actually got me into it, and then I ended up sparring with Randy Couture and Tito Ortiz and Rampage Jackson and Frank Trigg and Scott Smith and James Irwin, like the who's who of the UFC at the time. And then I sent my wife down, and I was getting my master's at the same time, and teaching, coaching at UC Davis, and I asked my wife, I said, hey, what do you think about me getting into MMA and fighting in the cage? She's like, no, I don't want you doing that. And I go, well, I need you to support me, because I think this is what I want to do right now. And she goes, well, all right. And so I end up training, started to train, and then about a year, 11 months later, I was in the UFC. It was just like a whirlwind of events, dude, just happened, and I was like winning by like knockouts and everything. And so the UFC picked me up. Well, it was the WEC at first.
Right.
The WEC picked me up. And then I fought 2 times in the WEC, and then the WEC folded, and then I got into the UFC. So that was my MMA
run, dude.
Yeah.
Was Faber just wrecking people back then in the early days?
Yeah, dude. Like he was training, and he was training at different gyms. So to get his jiu-jitsu, he was training with Cassio Warneck, and then to get his boxing, he was training with at like a boxing gym in Sacramento somewhere. And then to get his Muay Thai, he was getting his Muay Thai from different people. So he was going around and then getting his wrestling at UC Davis when he would wrestle. So everything would just be like divided and not like together. And then when he fought, it was MMA, so he had to put it all together, you know. So it was crazy. And then he's like, "Dude, I just won $500 and I knocked the guy on 20 seconds." You know, and I'm like, for real? He goes, yeah. And then he comes back, dude, I just won $1,000, you know, for like a minute and a half, you know. So he's telling me all this stuff. I'm like, dude, that sounds legit, you know. So I was like, you know, I was a broke coach at the time, you know, and I have a wife and 3 kids, one on the way. I'm like, man, I need money, man, you know. And so, you know, I was like, dude, all right, I'll start training. I'll start doing this stuff. And then finally, you know, it was like a year later, I was in the UFC and about to make some good money, you know. So, and I know I'm going fast, you know. I'm fast forwarding to a lot of
We'll go back to
stuff
Okie State. That's okay. We'll go back to it.
Yeah.
I want to ask, you know, first of all, Uriah Faber was my absolute favorite fighter for the longest time. I always before I lived in California, I always wanted to live in California, and I thought he had the coolest nickname ever. And my girlfriend actually lived in Carmichael, California. And do you know that area?
Yeah. Dude.
This is an ex-girlfriend from a long time ago, and I was flying out to see her, and this is kind of my impetus for my first stint in California, but we were at a pizza place. God, I wish I could remember the chain. It was like a chain pizza place, kind of like a nice place near Sacramento. We walk in and Uriah Faber was there. And I was like, oh my God. And her mom and dad had no idea. Yeah. And like back in the day, and you'll get this, talking about UFC was like talking about porn for a while. Like no one even knew what it was like so underground. It was on the level of like porn. I swear to God, people don't believe me, but it was weird. And her dad was like a news broadcaster. He's like, wait, who is that? I'm like, he's like this fighter guy. And I didn't know this, but the dad went up to go to the bathroom. And he comes back over with Uriah Faber, and we get a picture together. And I thought it was like just the coolest thing. And it was awesome, dude. And like, come to find out now, he was there with like a group of like 15 of like the team alpha male guys. You probably were there for all I know.
I was probably there.
But dude, to think back that he had the vision, and you guys together had the vision. But I mean, now he's got Team Alpha Male, and it's a massive gym, and he owns a whole block. It's like, I just love people who put their shit out there and make it happen, even when probably no one believed that could happen. I mean, and now you guys both have careers from it.
Yeah, I can probably get you a interview with him too, with Uriah.
I would love that, man. I would love that.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, he dude, I'm so thankful. He's like a brother from another mother to me, man. I got so much love, respect for him, dude. He's my guy, man. For
That's
sure.
Awesome, man. He just seems like a cool cat too. I mean, I don't know him, but I've listened to him on podcasts, and I was just the biggest fan of him. I used to call myself, I was from an area called the Quad Cities, so he was a California kid. I used to call myself the Quad City Kid.
That's awesome.
All because of Uriah Faber, man. And I still got the picture.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool.
And so we jumped ahead a little bit, and there's 2 stories I want to hit on. One is obviously Oklahoma State, but while we're on it, so you were a successful UFC fighter, one of the big name guys, and then you get hurt and you're out of the sport for a year, and you gained a bunch of weight, and I've heard you say that you went into a little bit of a slump. So talk us through that, because I think there's a lot of people now who are scared and who are in a slump because they're out of their routine. So talk us through how did that happen? Why'd you gain the weight? What were you feeling? How'd you get back on track?
So I was on a tear, and I was doing really well. And this was during a time where I was teaching at my gym, coaching at my gym, running range training center, and cornering all these guys while trying to be an elite mixed martial artist myself, and so my fighting was actually subsidizing the gym, because my partner actually got me into it. I fell into owning a gym. Like, I didn't want to own a gym, but I kind of fell into it because a good friend of mine, Andre Julian, and Mike Guyman had asked if I could be a part of the gym, and I said, yeah, I'll be a part of the gym. Let me know what you need. And they're like, no, you don't understand. We want you to be part owner. I'm like, well, I have no money, and they're like, no, sweat equity. We want you to just be, one of the faces of the gym. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I got into it that way. And once everything started going, and then 2008, 2009 came, and that's when the financial crisis hit. My partner, Andre, said, you got to be the outright owner because I got to attend to my other businesses, and so that's when I started getting into it. And then fast forward to 2010, I accept a fight with Chris Weidman, which was a short notice fight because I had to get ready for that in 6 weeks. And so I was already big, dude. I was like, I was already I think I was like 220, and I had to make 185. So I had to lose 35 pounds to make weight for that, right? And so I fought, and I barely made weight. I struggled to make that weight, barely made weight. And then I get knocked out by Chris Weidman. Well, as I was training, I noticed that I had my foot was hurting. And so I was like taping up my foot all the time and just making sure I was able to spar. Well, come to find out, after I fought Chris Weidman, my foot was broken. I broke my fifth metatarsal, which is like my pinky toe. So on my right foot. And so I had a hard time pushing off of it. And so if you watch the fight, I was actually like almost about to land my right hand before he landed at elbow, and so when he landed at elbow, it totally knocked me out. And then come to find out, my foot was broken, had a really bad concussion. And so I saw the doctor. The doctor said, this is going to be you're going to be about a year out before you fight again. I'm like, what? And so with all the stress mounting on top of me with, the gym and trying to support a family with my wife and kids. And, I felt this tremendous amount of anxiety. It just come upon me. I was like, I have to fight, because if I don't fight, I won't be able to pay my bills, So I was like the real life Cinderella man, So it was like, golly. And so during that time, it was like, the only thing I can do was really, just chill. And then I resort to food, And so I don't drink alcohol. I'm not into drugs at all. And so, I like comfort foods, man, so Filipino food I went to, and I just gained a bunch of weight. I gained, I don't know, I didn't even step on the scale, but I noticed my clothes were fitting differently, and I was just like, oh man. So I just started wearing shorts and sweats the whole time. And
just
so
gym shorts and
yeah, sweats the whole time because I was a gym owner, So it's like, what? I didn't need to wear jeans or slacks or anything like that. So I was just going through this, but keeping it to myself again, but at the same time I was struggling, and so I went to that and I stepped on the scale. I was 265 pounds, and it was like, oh my gosh, and so I went to my trainer, and my trainer was like, we need to do something drastic. And so he did this whole thing about
And
he
were you fighting
hashtag
middleweight? Sorry, just for people who have context. Middleweight or light heavyweight at the time?
no middleweight.
So 185. So for the people who are listening who aren't big into the UFC, he was fighting at 185, and he had ballooned up to 265. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah.
Just for context.
Yeah, that's for context for sure. So I was, really, really big, and so I started training with my trainer Todd Norman, and he had hashtag this hashtag called obese to beast, so he took pictures of me and then recorded some workouts along the way, and you can find all of this on YouTube and on my social media. You can probably look up obese to beast Mark Munoz, and you'll probably find it there. And he took like before and after pictures of me, and so it took a lot for me, to kind of like get back on track, because I was down and out, man. I was like, dude, I'm struggling big time, and I can't fight, and I'm going, I'm watching everybody else and cornering everybody else, and they're fighting and they're making money for their family, and I'm struggling here. I'm like, dang, this sucks, and so it was just like an endless pit, and then finally my trainer was like, hey, we need to go, and so he got on top of me, Todd Norman, which is his name. He owns this company called Cutting Edge, and he just helped me, man. He helped me and helped me along the way, and was able to like get me back on track. And I lost all that weight, and ended up fighting Tim Boach, and end up having the performance of a lifetime against Tim Boach, and then was back ranked in the top 5 after that fight. So,
wow.
So yeah, they talk about ups and downs in your life or your career, and I truly believe it takes the downs to really appreciate the ups, right? So like, when I was down and out, I was just like, man, this there's no worse feeling than this, right? But then it takes work to get back on top, right? To get yourself back to the swing of things. And when you wallow in your sorrow, there's nothing good that happens from that, and so I found myself wallowing in my sorrow and taking pity on myself, and I was like, you know what, I didn't know I was doing that, but I was doing it subconsciously. And so I had to fight through that and get back to form. And so I ended up being ranked in the top 5 after that fight. So yeah, it's crazy, man.
The weirdest
Go ahead.
part of when you're in a pit like that is that even if it's for a half hour or if it's for a year, like when you're at the bottom of it, in the back of your mind, you think of some things that could help. Maybe I should meditate. Maybe I should work out. But it just seems like the furthest thing away from what you should do. And you're kind of like blinded from what the right action is. And sometimes it takes a friend or a coach, like in your situation, to get back on track. And so if you had to kind of distill what changes you made, was it that you started working out again, obviously, but then 2, like, did you start to have a routine? Did your self-talk change? What do you think what techniques or tactics did you use to get back that are universal and not specific to fighting?
Yeah. And you talk about self-talk. Self-talk is super important. I learned that when I was getting my master's in sports psychology, and based upon your self-talk, you tell yourself what your body and your actions and behaviors actually do. So whatever you tell yourself, your action and behaviors will follow, right? And so when I couldn't fight, it was just like, man, there's nothing else that I can do rather than just coach. And now that I don't have to make weight, I'm just gonna eat. And so that's what I did. I ate and ate and ate, and I was like fat bastard. I ate because I ate. So that's just what I did. And thank goodness it took for my coach to kind of snap me back and say, hey, man, you're one of the best fighters in the world, and you need to get back to form, And so, so it just proves to people that are listening that you become who you surround yourself around, right? And so I'm thankful that I have a community of people around me that strive to be the best that they can be every day, and they were able to pick me up when I'm down, And so, I'm thankful that I have that community around me, and so, I would say to whoever's listening that it's important for you to surround yourself around like-minded individuals that want to strive for success and not be given things because they feel that they're entitled to things. So the people that work for things are the people that you want to surround yourself around, humble, hardworking people. And so I'm thankful that I was able to do that, and so and I had that, and so yeah, positive self-talk was one. Two was getting back on a routine, like you said, because I wasn't training. I wasn't sweating. I wasn't, there wasn't an outlet of me to take out any of the negative stuff that was in my body, and so I was just packing it on, and so when I started training, that's when it, started. I started losing weight. I started feeling better about myself. People around me were like asking me to train with them, and I started training with them more, and so I got back in the routine of training, and then have a positive mind frame about training and getting back into it because my foot was broken for a long time. I couldn't, so that's another thing, and I think those three things really brought me out of the pit, right? So is my self-talk, right? That I can do it, that I can get back into form, back into shape. Two is having a community of people around you to be able to help you pull yourself out of that, and creating a routine and sticking to that routine so that you can get out of your funk.
Absolutely. I love that, man. I mean, things that it's just always important to hear from someone who's been in the situation you've been in, where you've been at the lows, you've been at the highs, and you put it to practice. Appreciate you sharing that, man. I know we have we're kind of winding down here, but we have some time left. But we jumped over, man, one of the coolest chapters of your life. You mentioned it earlier, but dude, you wrestled at Oklahoma State, one of the elite dynasties in any sport. Forget about wrestling. I mean, Oklahoma State wrestling. Up until Dan Gable got there, and even after Dan Gable, had some incredible runs. And I know you coached during that. When you were coaching, is that when the Cowboy run restarted? Yes.
Okay. We won a national championship in 2003, and then there was a run after that. And so, we, if you talk about Oklahoma State wrestling, it's synonymous with collegiate wrestling, because Oklahoma State wrestling is the premier program when it comes to the most national championships won in any sport. So they won more team championships than any other team in any sport.
Period.
Period. So when you talk about tradition and Oklahoma State wrestling, it's just like it's the best out there. For sure.
And you got there during an awesome time, because I tried to distill an interview into events and people, and you're talking about people you were around: Jamil Kelly, Daniel Cormier, Tyrone Lewis. I mean, all of these, Mark Perry, Mark Branch, John Smith. It's like Pat Smith. It's like, holy shit, So I wanted to I wanted to ask you about a couple of them, and then when you were coaching, I'm sure some of the guys who we know now were coming up, like Esposito and Johnny Hendricks. They're probably hanging around those parts. Mark Perry Jr. was probably hanging around those parts. So, man.
There's a picture of me. There's a picture of me, Mark Perry Jr., and Chris Perry. So they're like itty bitty. they're like super small, and I'll dig it out somewhere. But yeah, Mark and Chris would come around all the time because Mark Sr. would bring them around, and they'd come to the wrestling room and watch us wrestle, and then we would wrestle with them. I remember wrestling with Mark Jr., wrestling around with him, and just like low singling him and just like scrambling with him. Yeah, that's crazy, man. That seems like yesterday, but it was so long ago.
I just sent you that picture. Chris had sent it to me in the past because there's no pictures of his dad online.
Oh, really?
So check out the text I just sent you. I think that's the one you're talking about.
Oh yeah, that's what it is.
Dude, it's you, and Jamil, DC with cake on his face.
Yep. And then there's Hardell. Yeah, that's Hardell. That's Hardell Moore.
Oh, that's Hardell? Okay.
That's
gotcha.
Hardell Moore. Yeah,
but
we just won the Big 12s right there.
Man, I mean, and a lot of people know Mark Perry Jr., and he was when he went to Iowa, I was a freshman in high school. The fact that he went there and his uncle was John Smith, and people on the podcast are sick to death of me hearing this story, but I just thought that was the most badass thing ever that he would do that and go to Iowa.
Exactly.
God,
I was shocked. I was shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, what? Is he going to be disowned? Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it.
Do you think there was some drama going on there for a while after that? Like people were really upset, or was it more so just for show? I mean, I heard people were actually upset about it.
No, people were like visually upset. I mean, you saw in them that they were super upset, so
man,
it was crazy. Yeah, it was a crazy time that time, man, when Mark Perry decided to go to Iowa. It was crazy.
And the fact that, Johnny Hendricks, one of the elite wrestlers at that time, they battled out a couple times, and man, wrestling has some incredible stories like that. You can't even make this shit up. Like I was just doing a documentary on Gable where, Tom Ryan went to Iowa, but he was a scholarship wrestler at Syracuse, but he leaves the scholarship, drives to Iowa like 4 a.m. He's a walk-on. He earns a scholarship because he beats Pat Smith at the St. Louis Open. And then a year later, Pat Smith beats him in the finals, but Iowa, they rebound. They have one of the best teams ever, and Oklahoma State had won 2 in a row before that. And then like in 94, Oklahoma State wins. So it's like there's just so many storylines.
I know.
Freaking
it's awesome.
Crazy. So I'm a huge John Smith fan. I wanted to ask you, everyone knows the accolades and, what are, not even, if you got a story, great, but like just something like the folks don't know about him. Like, is he like that competitive or like, what's he like as a coach? I mean, just give us a little insight into working with one of the all-time greats.
Yeah. So, Coach John actually, he gravitated to me a lot. I mean, I was just so happy to be on the team and to be under John Smith, because we had to watch on Betamax and VHS tapes on, Coach John, technique tapes or whatever, so like, I was like, dude, this is like the best wrestler in the world right now. And then I'm under, so, I couldn't believe it. And so when he came to my house to recruit me, I was like, Coach, look at this tape. It was like, how low can you go? VHS tape,
yep.
Coach, when I got hurt, I just watched this the whole time, and I taught myself how to shoot a low single leg, and so, he was like, oh, really? Shoot, you're really good at the low single leg now. So he was just pumped me up about that. But I was a guy that made a Greco World team, that I was more like an upper body guy, and then here I am shooting low single legs. It's like, it's crazy. But
what's he like in the living room, man? Is he a personable guy?
Yeah.
Is he a hard-nosed guy? What's he like?
Yeah, it was awesome, man, because when he was at my house, it was just like, one, I was in awe. I was like, "Ooh, John Smith's in my house," And I think I have a picture of that, and I'll show you a family picture. I can send you a picture of that. But yeah, when he was in my house, I was just like, "Oh, I couldn't believe it," And so my parents were just asking him a bunch of questions, and yeah, he just he had just said, Mark doesn't need to worry about anything. We got him, and he was just offering me a full ride scholarship. So I was just like, whoa,
Wow.
So I was sold already. I was like, I'm done. I'm sold, and then he was like, what do you want to get into academically? I said, well, I want to be an engineer. He goes, we got one of the best engineering departments in the whole state of Oklahoma. And then I was like, I also have like, medical, aspirations. He goes, well, we've got that as well. And so, and then he said, you're going to put yourself in a place where there's going to be doctors working with you if you want to be a doctor afterwards. And I was like, whoa, wow. So if you're a part of the Oklahoma State program, then you're part of a community of people that are successful in a lot of things. And so you can have like letters of recommendations from them. So he was just selling me on that, right? And then if you win a national championship, you just, you put yourself in a place where you're going to be very successful, financially as well. You can take care of your family and all that stuff. I was like, whoa, okay.
I'm sold, Coach. I'm sold.
Yeah, because I was getting recruited by Stanford and, Columbia, a lot of the Ivy League schools I was getting recruited by too, because I had pretty good grades, and so my dad really wanted me to go to Stanford, so I had to really, and so after that trip, my dad kind of changed his tune a bit, and said, okay, Oklahoma State looks like a good school. And I said, yep, it does. And so I signed the letter of intent, and I was like, yep, going to Oklahoma State. So Coach John was very welcoming. And then when we got there, when I got to Oklahoma State, I saw his competitiveness come through because, outside of the wrestling room, he's very welcoming. He's a religious man. Goes to church every Sunday. And he is a person that's outside of wrestling. If you didn't know him of wrestling, he'd just be a regular, humble, nice guy, But inside the wrestling room, I saw a different side to him. He's very competitive, was very technical, taught me a lot about like technique and intensity, being able to be resilient, as well. He's just, man, it's crazy because when I was in there, I came down. Here's a story. I got lots of stories, but here's a story.
Let's hear a couple stories here. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's a story. I saw him, Pat Smith, training for the 1996 Olympic trials, and him and John were down in the dungeon. We had what's called the dungeon. It was down in the basement of Gallagher Iba Arena, where the wrestling room was, and I go down there because I'm getting ready to cut weight because Coach wanted me to make 167 my freshman year, so I had to go downstairs and make weight, or just cut weight a little bit. And I see him down there with Pat Smith and Mark Smith, and Pat Smith and Mark Smith are wrestling, and I see Coach John, coaching Mark Smith, and Pat's just ragdolling him, right? And Coach is trying to coach Mark, which is the youngest brother, and then as he's trying to coach him, Pat's like pushing his face down into the mat, pushing him to the wall, and high crotching him and just launching him in the air and letting him go and letting him drop on his own. It was like, whoa. And then Coach John was trying to coach Mark, and then all of a sudden I see Coach in his squat, put his right foot out, then he starts tying his shoe, then he put his left foot out, starts tying his shoe, and then kind of wiggles out his arms, waves out his arms, and then he goes, all right, Mark, you're out, I'm in. you know. And so he starts wrestling with Pat and was beating the brakes off of Pat, like high crotch, low single leg, duck under, fireman's carries. It was like, you name it, he was hitting it on him. It was like, whoa, this is crazy. And I'm like watching with my own eyes, you know, this, and I'm like, you know, and John's, you know, he's been retired, you know, and so, and he's just coaching. I mean, it's not far off.
And he's smaller too, right?
And he's smaller. He's way smaller. He's like 20 pounds smaller than Pat.
But he just put the whipping on him, huh?
Put the whooping on him. I mean, it was like, my jaw dropped. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. I'm actually flying the wall watching this. You know, like, it's crazy, dude. That was one.
Wow.
And then, yeah, that was one. And there was another one where the World Cup was actually in Stillwater, and John was actually helping out the world team, and he ended up, you know, was wrestling Tom Brands. Just drilling with them. They started drilling first, and then all of a sudden it turned out to be a wrestling match after that. And then John was just like high crotching them, low single legging them. It was just like, oh my gosh, like John's at a whole different level. It's unbelievable. You know, it was.
And Tom Brands was like at the height of his career, 90, like that time. When'd you get to Stillwater? Like 97 or before that?
96.
Okay.
I graduated high school in 96, yeah, so summer of 96.
So Tom Brands is at his absolute peak, and everyone's seen the video of John Smith attacking Tom Brands at the 91 U.S. Open. But you'd think that, by 96, Tommy Brands might be even in the score, but they start drilling, then they start going, and it's just a bloodbath, huh?
Yeah. Oh, my gosh, it was amazing, you know? It was so cool to watch, but I mean, Tom would get a takedown on John too, but I mean, John was just competing. John wasn't like completely whooping on him. It wasn't that, but it was like John was like competing with him and getting the better of him. It was just like, whoa, this is crazy, you know?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm a freshman. I'm a true freshman. You know, I'm like, this is crazy. This is nuts.
I heard that you said you were cutting weight. I heard that Coach Smith does like guys to cut a lot of weight. Was that the case back then, or was he easing up on it back in those days?
Heck no. I won everything at 189 pounds. Won the nationals. You know, I made a world team. You know, I was a bigger boy. But then he saw me. He goes, "Oh, yeah, you're gonna wrestle 167s." I was like, "What?" Oh my gosh! I was like, okay, whatever John Smith says, I'm gonna do. You know, so
yeah.
I was cutting weight like crazy, like trying to get down 167 pounds, and I was doing okay, but like, you know, I just wasn't good, and for the first like 2 years, like my redshirt freshman and redshirt sophomore year, like I was cutting so much weight. Even to make like 77s, I was cutting a lot of weight, and I was, you know, I wrestled. And then they changed the weight class to 177, 184. It made it a little bit better, but like, it was tough, man. It was really tough for me. So I was like, Coach, I need to go up. He goes, no, we need to like give you a nutritionist and, you know, have you like do more cardio. And I go, no, Coach, you don't understand. I wrestle better when I'm bigger. And so this is a story for you. So after my sophomore year at Nationals, I was ranked top 6 in the country. I did an All-American. The second day where I had to make weight, I was 11 pounds over to make weight that night. You know, and so
God.
Yeah. And so I was like, dude, I'm not going to make weight. Stayed up till like 2 a.m, made weight, and I was just like trash the next day, right? So anyways, on the podium, there was 4 guys that I beat on the podium my sophomore year, right? So I was like, man, I cannot. I'm not gonna cut. I'm just gonna get bigger. And then John heard of that, and he called me in. He goes, hey, Munoz, we need you to wrestle 184. I said, Coach, can I wrestle 197? He goes, No, we got a guy coming in, a 2-time JUCO national champion, Daniel Cormier. He's coming in. He's going to wrestle 197. I said, Coach, I want to wrestle 197. He goes, well, no, you need to wrestle 184. You need to do what's best for the team. I go, but Coach, it's not going to be for the best of the team if I wrestle 184, you know? And he just didn't understand. And so finally I was like, okay, he didn't understand. So then I started lifting, and Mark Perry, Senior, started lifting with me. He showed me some stuff and gave me some supplements, gave me some creatine, gave me some, what was it? It was some Tribulus and some other stuff that like helped, keep the muscle on me. And so I lifted with him, and I started getting bigger, and I went home for 3 months, and I lifted on my own. I came back because J.J. McGrew was trying to make an Olympic team in year 2000. And I come back, and I'm wrestling J.J. McGrew, and Coach Smith comes in watching us, and he's like a minute later, he's like, Munoz, is that you? Like, he didn't recognize me. He's like, what the hell? He goes, you on steroids, son? I go, no, Coach, I'm not on steroids. He goes, get on the scale, right? So I jump on the scale. I'm 235 pounds, right? And he's like, what are you doing? We need you at 184 this year. I go, I don't know, Coach. I don't know if I can make that. And he goes, son, you on steroids? No, Coach, I'm not. And he goes, all right, well, you're just going to have to wrestle off for the spot. And so I wrestled off, and Daniel had to go down. It's 184, and I wrestled 197. And
that had to be a hard cut for DC.
So it was a very hard cut for him. I feel bad for him.
But you ended up winning it that year, right?
Yeah, I won it that year, yeah.
God! And I could just hear him saying that, and he has a really strong Oklahoma accent. He's like, is that you?
Yeah, he goes, Munoz, is that you? I'm like, yeah, Coach. So,
God.
But that changed his perspective on cutting weight, it totally changed him, so I think that was kind of the beginning of him thinking, okay, maybe, bumping up is a good thing, because he had that old school mentality. If you cut more weight, you're going to be better at that weight because you're going to be bigger,
God, why do you think that? It's just, I can't believe, I've heard other people say that too, that when you go there, you cut a lot. And I just don't get why someone would be such a big fan of it, even now to this day. It's like, we know it's not the answer. The Russians don't even cut that much weight.
I know.
I know. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I just, it changed his mentality now. I mean, he's different about it now, but, when I was going through it, I cut a lot of weight. So,
man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
God, I love these stories.
Yeah, but I love Coach John.
Oh, yeah.
I love him. I love him and his family, and he was just doing what he thought was right, at the time for me. And then, he welcomed me with open arms, and he still does. He loves me and my family, and I love and appreciate him too. So, I do just about anything for him.
It's funny you say that. I've interviewed about 20 people about Dan Gable because I just released a podcast documentary on him called Gable the GOAT. And people said that same thing. Like, they literally would take a bullet for Gable. And I wonder if that's the same way. Like, the people who wrestle for Oklahoma State, do they have that reverence for John Smith same way? Like, he's a father figure. You do anything for him.
Yeah, man. I mean, my relationship with him, and I don't know about other people, but and I speak for myself, but I would definitely, I would, he welcomed me in with open arms, man. So despite all the things that happened between us, as far as him wanting to cut me down, I mean, he felt like it was the and I can't fault him for that because, in his experience, I guess he saw the benefits of it, but for me, I was like, it's not going to benefit me at all. And but he would bring me into his home, have, just have family dinners with him and his family. It was awesome.
Man.
When I look back in my college career, I look back and I smile because it was part of my upbringing in the sport, and you notice that everyone that wrestles for Oklahoma State, they end up becoming a very, very good coach because of what they learned there.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you can go up and down the times that Coach John coached his wrestlers, and you go up and down the lineup and throughout the years, and a lot of them have become coaches, college coaches.
A lot, yeah, really. It's crazy. I mean,
yeah.
And not only that, but also like fight trainers too, like DC.
No, I know.
And his involvement with the AKA, you and what you're doing. I mean, it's no secret, man. The guy knows what he's doing. He's one of my all-time top guests. I got to get on. I haven't had him on yet, but I've been doing a swarm tactic. I've had Chris Perry on, Mark Perry Sr. on, but he's just obviously an American hero, a wrestling hero, and one of the most well-spoken people when it comes to wrestling. I love listening to him do an interview.
Oh yeah, he's awesome.
Well,
I love it.
Mark Munoz, it's been an honor to talk with you, sir. I really enjoyed it. You're welcome back on at any time, and hopefully once this traveling goes away, I'll be out to California and we can meet up and meet in person, man, and hopefully be friends here.
Yeah, man. Let me know. You got my number, so hit me up.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you for the time, man. I appreciate it. And all great things must come to an end. If you want to hear more from the podcast, text WRESTLE to 555-888. That's WRESTLE to 555-888. You can also find us on Instagram, Wrestling Changed My Life, Twitter, Ryan_N_Warner, as well as our website, WrestlingChangeMyLife.com. Take care, y'all. 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 Take care, y'all.